being an American attorney and seeing how America's handling the situation, uh, do you know, good or bad, what's going on, why America's doing what they're doing or why they're not doing what they're doing?
Well, I think right now it's kind of a powder keg. Any decision made by any country is going to have consequences, whatever the decision may be. I'm not privy to that kind of information to know really why they're doing what they're doing. But I think the most simple answer would be, the U.S. hasn't physically sent in troops to help because Ukraine is not a member of NATO.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Modern Lawyers Podcast. I'll be your host, your lawyer Ali, and I'm here with attorney Veronica Buckels.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's Wednesday. What's on the agenda?
Ton of stuff. We got a lot going on. Big things coming.
You do law and HR?
Yes, I do.
Anyone you like more?
I like them both. They both have their challenges, and they both have parts of the job that are exciting and different.
Cool. So you get to wear like multiple hats?
I do.
All right. Why'd you get into law, by the way?
You want the long version or the short one?
I mean, we're all ears, so give us the long version.
All right. Well, I went to college and studied sociology. I was helping people. It was a big thing I wanted to do. I thought that would be the avenue. I also majored in English. And so I thought, how can I merge the two of these together to do something? I like learning. I like reading. I like writing. Forever student. So I thought, something with sociology and English. What can I do here? Started thinking about law, but it really wasn't until after college when I took a trip to Europe. I'm Polish and Japanese, so we went to Poland. We actually went to Auschwitz, where my grandfather was in prison during World War II. And I kind of walked around there and had one of those aha moments. Kind of struck me and said, I think law might be a great avenue to be able to help people. So I thought, I'm going to take the LSAT, see what happens. I did well and started law school.
That's exciting. So Polish and Japanese. So when you went to Poland, you went to Auschwitz, which, wow, Holocaust right there. What was that aha moment?
Just walking on the grounds, being there. They actually have the execution wall still up where prisoners were taken. Flowers were put there. There's kind of remembrance things everywhere. People were able to write messages. There were little mini shrines. And just to see how that impacted not only the people who were there, but so many future generations. And thinking about what lawyers did at the time, they just kind of followed the rules. They kind of said, well, German lawyers said, this is the law. This is what we're supposed to do. And not a lot of people stood up and said, this is not the right thing to do. So for me, thinking the right thing to do would be to help people, that was kind of my aha moment. This is what I can do. This is where I can make a difference in people's lives.
That's awesome. So you have ties to Eastern Europe. That's interesting, especially what's going on in the world with Ukraine. Being an American attorney and seeing how America's handling the situation, do you know, good or bad, what's going on, why America's doing what they're doing or why they're not doing what they're doing?
Well, I think right now it's kind of a powder keg. Any decision made by any country is going to have consequences, whatever the decision may be. I'm not privy to that kind of information to know really why they're doing what they're doing. But I think the most simple answer would be, the U.S. hasn't physically sent in troops to help because Ukraine is not a member of NATO. And I think that's just the biggest sticking point as to why they haven't done that, and the simplest explanation.
Okay. What is NATO?
NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Can't tell you off the top of my head exactly how many countries are part of it, but the bulk of the European countries are part of it, as well as our allies, France, United States, are all part of this treaty, basically, that says all the resources of all these countries that are members can be used to protect any other member country. So since Ukraine is not part of NATO, they're basically closely monitoring the situation to make sure that Russia does not invade a NATO country, the surrounding countries like Poland, Slovakia, I believe Hungary, and Romania.
I see. Wouldn't it make sense for Ukraine to be a part of NATO?
I believe that's the hope for everyone. I think they're in the process of that. I don't think that that application process, whatever that may be, has been completed yet.
I see. So my understanding, when you're a part of NATO, everyone has each other's backs, and so if any country gets attacked on, the other allies in NATO will come and step in. Ukraine's not necessarily part of NATO right now, so it puts everybody in a weird situation.
Exactly, and I think that the world is different too now, with the power shift that has kind of occurred since the Cold War. There may not be another World War III. There's things that countries are doing now, stepping in to help as far as sanctions, freezing assets. There's so much more that you can do digitally now that you couldn't do, 50, 60 years ago. And I think that's kind of changing the face of international conflict as well.
I see. That's interesting. You talk about crippling, or you talk about sanctions. I read about the crippling sanctions that U.S. is applying to Russia, and I even saw Switzerland is imposing crippling sanctions, which they're supposed to be the neutral here.
Right.
That's interesting. And you said because of the digital age, I read up on Anonymous. Anonymous is this cyber gang, I like to call them, and so they're even getting involved with Russia with some type of cyber hacking, I guess.
I think they're trying to attack their economy. That's what I understand of it as well. I don't know too much about that, though.
I don't think anybody knows too much about that. They're anonymous. So okay, and going back to it, so you go to Eastern Europe, you go to Auschwitz, and that's what inspired you to be a lawyer. It sounds like you wanted to help people, and then how did that digress into personal injury?
I think everyone goes to law school, or at least most people, and just speaking for myself, with this idealistic image of I'm gonna, go to The Hague and I'm gonna, prosecute war criminals and I'm gonna be this lawyer that changes the world. And that's not what it is. That's maybe what the glamorized version of law is. But the day-to-day is coming to work every day, enjoying your job and helping people, whatever capacity it is. If you're a family lawyer, you're helping people get through a divorce. If you're a personal injury lawyer, you're helping people through some of the worst experiences of their life after they've been injured. So for me, I started law school with you, and I started a job at a small personal injury firm that was down the street from my house when I was a second-year law student.
I think I'm familiar with that firm.
I believe you are. So working there was really interesting to see how they really made an impact on people's lives. I think that personal injury is a smaller version of, this idealized human rights, wanting to help people thing. You're helping people who are individuals. You may not be prosecuting war criminals who have impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of lives, but you are impacting this person's life and their family's life. So that kind of drew me to personal injury.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you can kind of create the correlation between civil rights and a civil case on an individual basis. I mean, that's what personal injury is. You're fighting for the rights of a person in civil court. As crass as that might sound, in civil court, we go after money to compensate that individual. So instead of you putting war criminals in jail, you're going after someone, you're going after money to reimburse and compensate an injured person for what they've gone through. And most of the time, I mean, when you're injured, right, if you have a sports injury or something like that, you don't feel 100%. You can't really defend yourself. You can't fight for yourself. So that's kind of where you come in and you use your expertise, English major, your law degree, to step into the shoes of the injured victim.
Absolutely.
Okay. What's your favorite part about personal injury?
I really like closing the client out at the end and having them tell us, how much of an impact this has had on their life. You're trying to be there for them every step of the way. A lot of times, they go to our intake department and they're having a terrible day. Their car's totaled. They don't have any way of getting around. They're upset. Then they're treating and they're dealing closely with the case managers. and you're there every step of the way, but you're really there for them when they're starting to feel good, and it's great because you get to kind of step in and they're happy at that point. But to really get them the settlement that they deserve and to see how it's changed their life, that to me is my favorite part of this job, is just to see the impact that it had on them or on their family or anybody else, close to them.
I love that. Would you say that you're just an attorney to these clients?
A lot of the clients become, closer to you. They're calling you on the weekend. They're sharing personal news about themselves. Luckily, I feel like we do a really, really good job here, and clients will come back. Hopefully, they don't come back too often. We don't want them always getting in car accidents, but it's great to know that they trust us so much that they're willing to come back again or to refer their friends and family to us and tell them, hey, these people really changed my life and did a great job.
I love that. That's interesting. You say that clients will call you, nights and weekends. I hear this a lot. I hear people say, only if I had more time, or I don't have enough time for that, or I wish there's more hours in the day. And so we all have 24 hours in the day. Obviously, we have to sleep. How do you, a person that's, super lawyer, super mom, super wife, and you have time to spend time with your friends, your family, work, all that stuff, HR. What do you think about this whole, I wish I had more time?
I think that everyone handles time management in a different way. I can say what works for me, and that might not work for someone else. I think you have to recognize that time management, just like any other thing that you're starting out, you're trying to learn how to play soccer. You're not going to be that great when you start. It's a skill. It's something that you have to practice and something that you'll get better at with time if you want to, if you put in the effort. For me, juggling as much as I do, I don't always do the best job every single day, but every day is a new day. What I try to do is I'm a huge proponent of lists.
Okay.
Setting a schedule and trying to stick to that schedule, without being too rigid. I think you have to prioritize some of the bigger things and learn how to say no. That was something that was really hard for me for a long time. But setting that boundary, we do only have the 24 hours. And if I say yes to every single thing, this social commitment, this case, this, HR issue, my child's play, everything, I'm physically not going to have enough hours in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So learning to say no to the things that are not really critical is huge. And people always say multitask. I actually try to avoid multitasking. I try to be fully in the moment for what it is I'm doing. If I'm working on a demand, I'm trying not to take phone calls in the middle of that unless I really have to. If I'm present with my children, trying to be present without thinking a million other things in my head. I think that gives you a better work product, and you're a better parent for that when you're able to be present in whatever it is that you're doing. But yeah, I think it's just a skill that if you practice, you'll get better at some point.
Sure. So you're always just giving 100% of whatever you're doing in that moment.
I try to. I don't say that I always do, but I try to.
Okay, that's fair enough. Because I always wonder. You have so much going on, and I'm like, how does she just get that done? And she keeps crushing it. So that's really cool. I know that you're a big role model to young female professionals and young women lawyers. What's a message that you'd want to give to everybody?
I see you say that, but I think just for any person, not even just women, but I just think every person should recognize that your career path doesn't have to look like anyone else's. You may be content with a job that you do well, and you clock out at 5 and you go home and you spend time with your family or do whatever it is. You might want to be a CEO that sleeps on their couch and they're, Fortune 500 CEO, or you might be a stay-at-home mom with a side hustle. But whatever it is, you have to recognize that getting to that dream path for you is going to require sacrifice on some level. And these little things that you do each day that you might think are beneath you or aren't producing anything, those are laying the foundation for something bigger. So just recognizing that your career path isn't the same as everyone else's, and that's okay. I also think, knowing your worth and being confident in what you bring to the table is really important, to know that you're not an imposter. I think that's a huge thing that happens for a lot of people in our generation, younger as well, thinking that it's only a matter of time before they find me out. I can't really do this. Just faking it till you make it. I mean, really just being confident in your abilities and what you have, but also being receptive to constructive criticism. You're going to learn when you can really step back from yourself and recognize your shortcomings and adapt and learn from the people around you to be a better employee, a better parent, a better lawyer. I think that's really important.
I like that. So everyone has their own story, right? And be in love with the process. And your process could look different than everybody else's. There's multiple ways to go from point A to point B, right? That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you. So we have it from the superstar attorney Veronica Buckels. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you everybody for watching us. Next week, stay tuned. We're going to have a collegiate athlete gone lawyer. His name is Cameron Bidgoli, and I look forward to seeing everybody. Cheers.